I'm Vanessa Lafaye, and I'm going to read my story, A Simple Mistake, which is available on the Etherbooks app. I'm going to be reading it from the app, and it's a story about a wheelchair-bound woman who finally finds the courage to confront her stalker with surprising results for them both. A Simple Mistake. The dome of an umbrella bobbed along the top of the fence, beneath the dripping horse-chestnut branches. Pink, blue, white stripes, childhood colors, an adult's height. It had been raining for days, maybe weeks. Lots of umbrellas bobbed along her fence, but she recognized this one. It was him again. Cynthia wheeled herself into the corner of the sitting room where she could see the gate, but where reflections from the bay window prevented anyone seeing in. Him again. He stood at the gate under his girlish umbrella, not entering, just staring at the house, right at the window in the room in which she sat, as if he knew she was there, trapped behind the glass, like an insect in a display case. His eyes were obscured by glasses with thick lenses, which only intensified her unease. A heavy, jowly face which could have been middle-aged or much younger, collar too tight around his thick neck, disastrous hair which looked like it had been styled by a blind lunatic, a rumpled raincoat straight from the Flashermack warehouse. "He can't see me," she said aloud. "He can't see me." She was safe. It was ridiculous to be so fearful. It was the fault of the chair. Since the accident 6 months ago, her personality had begun to change. She could feel the chair slowly but definitely asserting its will over her. Up through her useless legs, its metal frame melded itself to her, its leather seat becoming one with her buttocks, her waist, where all sensations stopped or began, depending on one's direction of travel. Eventually they would become one, part machine, part paralyzed person, a cyberlegic. At the start she had raged at the chair, insisted on trying crutches, leg braces, anything that would keep her upright, at eye level with other adults. "I'm sorry," Dr. Azaria had said, not even trying to sound sincere. She had been a challenging patient, according to the quick peek at her physiotherapy referral letter. "The fracture of your spine has resulted in complete paralysis of the lower extremities. In my experience in such cases," he sighed, his mind already on other, more compliant patients, "there is no prospect of a return to function. Make no mistake, Dr. Azaria," she had said, with confidence which now seemed absurd, "I will get out of this chair one day." Cynthia had been through all the textbook stages, shock, sadness, denial, anger, and got stuck there. She had never moved on to the last stage, acceptance. A successful criminal prosecutor at the top of her profession, she had not risen to the level of partner by being good at acceptance. She was good at getting people to pay for their mistakes. None of that mattered anymore. That part of her life was finished. Her job was still there, but she had no interest in returning to court to be the subject of prurient curiosity, to be looked down on in her chair. She had loved it. It was over. There was nothing to fill the void. One instant, that was all it took for her life to be ruined. Not ruined, Sandra the therapist would have said. Changed. You need to adjust your point of view. At times like that, Cynthia's anger was a palpable force inside her, streams of molten lava in her veins. Her arms still worked perfectly well, better, in fact, from all the wheeling, plenty strong enough to beat Sandra to death with her leopard print ballet shoes. One instant. Step off the curb into the road at one moment in time, distracted by something just at the edge of your vision, and your life goes one way. Wait on the curb for 1 second longer, and it goes another way. All those months, lying in the hospital bed, she had ransacked her memory for what she had seen that day. Something had made her move, just at the second she should have stayed. But the answer was lost somewhere in the folds of her cerebellum, not helped by the powerful antidepressants which kept her from the knife drawer, but also dulled her thought processes. The world was full of such moments, she realized. The moment when the woman misses the last bus and decides to walk home. The moment when the man checks into the hotel room with a faulty gas fire. The moment when the little boy, bored with his toys, finds Daddy's gun cabinet unlocked. Despite, or maybe because of all the new modifications and gadgets in her house, the ramps, ugly handrails everywhere, new shower big enough for her chair, her bed in the downstairs study, she felt her formerly outgoing, adventurous nature draining out of her a little every day, a slow leak. Before the accident she would have run the old pervert off the top of her drive with her best courtroom voice. Now here she was, cowering in the corner of the room. She felt catapulted into early geriatrichood. It was wrong. Every molecule of her being screamed that it was wrong. This was not how her life was meant to be. The essential Cynthia-ness was leaving. And what remained? What did remain? A hollow carcass sat for the rest of its days in the chair, a creature that ate and drank, peed into a bag, inhaled and exhaled, kept clean by the efficient hands of Marjorie, the private nurse paid for by the insurance settlement. At least Marjorie was different, not like Sandra. Cynicism oozed from her pores, clung to her like the smoke from her roll-ups, and she liked Cynthia, who did not mind if the nurse smoked in the flat. Once Marjorie had bathed and dressed her and dispensed her meds, checked her pressure sores and massaged her wasted muscles, they would settle down for a chat and a smoke. Lung cancer, Cynthia figured, would at least make a change. Since the accident she had embraced unhealthy habits with the same fervor which she had once applied to staying healthy. The blender which had previously been used for wheatgrass and bee pollen smoothies was now pressed into service for the staggeringly strong cocktails that she shared with Marjorie. Thankfully, Marjorie only needed to stagger a short distance to the bus stop once her shift was over or the cocktails finished, whichever came first. "Did you know that Christopher Reeve was killed by a bedsore?" Cynthia once asked Marjorie. "Blood poisoning from an infected bedsore." "You ask me," Marjorie had said, with a loud grunt as she heaved Cynthia into the chair. "That man was meant to go when he fell on his head." Marjorie was from Jamaica and liked Cynthia's flat because it was always warm. Warmth was needed to stimulate Cynthia's sluggish circulation, but Marjorie had never adapted to the British climate. At least 2 bulky jumpers swathed her uniform, even in summer. Cynthia suspected that there was another reason for the jumpers. Marjorie's uniform buttons had long ago lost the battle of the bulge. "Does that mean that you think I should have died when that car hit me?" Cynthia had asked. That was her own view, reinforced with every passing day. "You too angry to die, Cyn," Marjorie had said with a contented sigh as she settled into the moss-green velvet armchair with the claw feet by the radiator. "Looks like my glass must have a hole in it." The stalker never appeared when Marjorie was there, nor did he appear when any of her other infrequent guests paid their visits. But there he was again, just standing outside the gate, raindrops suspended from the points of his ridiculous umbrella. It was the umbrella that did it. She refused to be intimidated by a stalker with an umbrella like that. All the months of heartbreak, while her life and her legs withered, the parade of indignities lengthened, the monotonous platitudes from well-wishers threatened to bury her alive, the nights of deepest, blackest despair, all of this propelled her to the front door. Driven by a pure white flame of anger, she smacked the button to open it, wheeled herself up the ramp and along the path where she stopped, panting. Only the wooden gate separated them, shedding flakes of brown paint like dead skin. He did not move away. Suddenly she realized that, in her haste to confront him, she did not know what to say. The only sound was the rain clattering softly on the leaves overhead. "Good afternoon, Cynthia," he said, with a pleasant smile which revealed a mouthful of uneven, nicotine-stained teeth. One of the upper canines was capped with gold. Even up close it was no easier to see his eyes through the glasses. "How are you today?" His voice was confident, the voice of someone used to getting their own way. Unexpected from a man who looked like a community psychiatric case. So outraged was she that no words would come. She just shifted jerkily in the chair. It took a moment to register that he knew her name, but then any competent stalker would manage that. "Careful," he said, "the brake's off." Sure enough, the chair began to roll backward. In an instant he was through the gate, his hand on the chair to stop its descent, his umbrella shading her from the rain. "Get away from me!" she bellowed, in her most sonorous, menacing courtroom voice, which had shriveled some of the top barristers in the land where they stood. He smiled again. "You must teach me how to do that sometime. But first we have some things to talk about. Shall we go inside?" She was just about to blast him right off his feet with a fire hose of invective, had opened her mouth to do just that, and stopped, jaws akimbo. She remembered. The crowd of people on the pavement, everyone impatient for the lights to change so they could return to their warm offices and houses, elbows, shoulders jostling. Easy enough for someone to lose their balance. It was him. The day of the accident. Just behind her on the pavement, in the crowd, over her left shoulder. He had been there. "Now then," he said kindly, and extended a hand to close her mouth, yellowish nails on his fingers. "I've been waiting quite a while. Let's go inside and get everything in order." And before she could protest or do anything to attract attention, he had spun her chair around and wheeled her into the house. To be so helpless made her even angrier, but frightened too. It was bad enough being a woman, but worse to be a woman who could not even kick him in the crotch. She was utterly in his power. Once in the living room, he removed his ugly raincoat and settled himself in Marjorie's armchair, relaxed but businesslike. He extracted a small spiral notebook and pen from his pocket. "Let's see now," he said, flicking the pages of the notebook. "You are Cynthia Hattersley, correct?" "I saw you. That day. You were there," she croaked. "I saw you." "Yes, you did," he sighed, "but things didn't go to plan, did they?" He scribbled something on the pad, muttered, "Modern medicine makes my job so much harder. Only a few years ago a bang like yours would have done the job, no question." "Plan? What plan? Done what job?" Her mouth was almost too dry to speak. She swallowed. It did not help. "Who are you?" she whispered. He smelled wrong. Not like stale sweat or another body odor. This was the smell of things shut away from the light for years, of things buried deep in the ground forever. Her guts contracted with a desperate desire to be anywhere he was not, on another continent, on another planet. Bile stung her throat. The phone was out of reach, the house screened from the street by the trees. "Come on, Cynthia, you know who I am. Think about it." He nodded encouragingly, like he was trying to help her pass an exam. Only a few hours ago, her only concern was whether Marjorie would remember to bring more rum. "You were there to kill me? You're a hitman?" Her voice rose with incredulity at the idea that the scraggy specimen before her could be a professional killer. "I'm not a hitman, Cynthia." His voice was different. Gone was the joviality, the nicotine-stained grin. "I am the hitman." He removed his glasses to reveal two sockets filled with unending blackness. They pulled her like two magnets. The chair inched slowly towards him. "Time to go, Cynthia." She could not move, could not look away. The room went cold and dark around her, the central heating no match for the frigid gusts coming off him. It was spring outside the window, but deepest winter in her living room. She would have screamed, but she had no voice. She would have fainted, but was not the fainting type. A mad thought flashed into her mind. "It's a good thing I'm sitting down." He replaced his glasses, and the room returned to its normal temperature. "Sorry to rush you, love, but I'm on a schedule. We'll just take care of the formalities and be off." Off? So many times since the accident she had longed for death, but now that he was sitting in her armchair she desperately wanted to live. She wanted to watch the sun move across the panes of her bedroom window. She wanted to get drunk with Marjorie while they watched her soaps. She wanted to go back to work. She wanted so many things. "Yes, love, you were due to go when you stepped off that pavement. That bloody Dr. Azaria is causing me no end of grief. You wouldn't believe the paperwork. Let's see here." He consulted his notebook. "You are Cynthia Eleanor Hattersley?" "No." She shook her head. "No, not me." "I know it's a shock, love, but rules is rules." He tapped the notebook with the pen, impatient now, on a schedule. "No, I mean, yes, it is a shock, but no, that's not me. I'm Cynthia Ann Hattersley." She extracted her driver's license from the purse by her feet. "Look." He studied the license, his face growing more and more pale, until it was almost white. A deep, expressive sigh. "Bugger. I hate it when this happens." "What do you mean?" Her voice had returned to full strength. "When what happens?" She leaned forward, despite his smell. "Do you mean you, the all-powerful, have screwed up? And not for the first time? Has it not occurred to you there might be time to find a different line of work? Like dog catcher? Oh, wait, you would probably catch the wrong ones." She began to laugh, loud honking guffaws which cleared her lungs for what felt like the first time in months. "No need to get nasty. Everyone makes mistakes," he said, with a defensive whine. Beyond white now, and beginning to look quite opaque, his voice growing weaker. "Mind if I smoke?" You smoke? She asked. Of course I smoke, he said, pulled a crumpled butt from his pocket and lit up. You won't tell anyone about this, will you? Her lawyer's brain began to work for the first time in ages. How many more were there like her, victims of the most colossal administrative blunder in the known universe? You have to leave now. Almost transparent by this point, he said, Very well, but I will see you again in, about... And he was gone. The armchair was empty. She was still laughing, but quietly, tired from the unaccustomed exertion. The rain had stopped. The chair was dry where his Mac had lain. The only reminder of him was a lingering smell of cheap tobacco. Marjorie would soon take care of that. Elation and relief battled for control of her face. She tilted her head back in the despised chair, smiling while tears flooded her eyes. And then her left big toe began to tingle. The end. Thank you for listening. If you want any more stories, you can find them on the Etherbooks app.